whenever you want to create something, whether it be a product, a creative pursuit, or something simple as a website, it doesn't really matter. You can either learn it and do it yourself, or you can pay somebody to do it. Now, of course, there exists a spectrum therein, and usually that's, for me, when I do my creative pursuits, I, do as much of it as I can and get it to, let's say, the 80-yard line, if we're using a football analogy, and then, pay somebody a much smaller fee to get it the last 20 yards into the end zone, so to speak. And of course, there's the spectrum, you can have it be different for yourself, and it can be different for project to project, even task to task. But I bring that up because, of course, there are trade-offs to all of it, right? But I often find that up-and-coming artists often rail against this notion that they can either learn something and do it themselves, or they can hire somebody to do it for them. And the reason that is happening is because somewhere in their mind, they're like, okay, I am talented enough. People should recognize that I'm talented, and they should give me money and fund my projects and want to support that and do it either for free because I'm so awesome, or again, they'll pay me, they'll sponsor me to do it. And of course, that is the ambition for any aspiring artist, right? It's no different than somebody like with a startup, who's an inventor. They want venture capitalists to pour money into their idea. But whether it's a creative project or a product, right? Oftentimes, to be able to do that, you have to convince people of why, right? Why should they be willing to take a risk on you financially or time-wise, resource-wise? Doesn't matter, right? We see this all the time with Shark Tank. People want to see Mr. Wonderful, when it comes to investing, he says I want to put my money somewhere where I'm just adding gasoline, and the fire all of a sudden goes bigger, right? That's his metaphor. But the same thing applies to creative projects and stuff like that. People will back you when they feel like you're going to be so successful, right? Because they just want to glom on to that. But until that point, you got to really consider, how am I going to be able to break through and get the stuff that I want to get done? And so overall, those are your two choices. You can either learn it and do it yourself, or you can pay somebody to do it for you. And that's a frustrating thing, because especially as the artist, we already lack time and resources, and by definition, I include money as a resource. So it's how do you do this? So again, it might have to go slower for you in order to be able to fund that. Or you're going to have to humble yourself, roll up your sleeves a little bit, and learn some things that you may not have wanted to learn, but in order to progress the project forward, you have to, right? It becomes more about what's more important to you. And I consider that for myself every time I'm doing a project. The things that I'm after, I always look at maybe this would be annoying and it's frustrating and it's going to be very tedious to do it myself, and it would be far easier just to pay somebody to do it, because they could probably knock it out in 20 minutes, whereas for me, it might take 20 hours, right? But it's like paying someone with that expertise might be $3, $4, $5 sometimes, right? Because you're paying for that experience. So it's okay, well, in lieu of that, roll up my sleeves and let's get to that thing. And so I wanted to really introduce this concept for you, because in order to make it, every indie artist that I know faces this. And they have to make their concessions in this, the trade-offs of it all. And there are trade-offs, right? You don't, I don't know, if somehow through like luck and stuff like that, you know, you have very great friends or whatever the case may be, where someone just does it for you, then great. You know, be thankful and appreciative of those person. I mean, we all need somebody to kind of believe in us, and I certainly, you know, do plenty of pro bono stuff with my friends, but conversely, they help me out a lot too, right? And even if it's just providing guidance and things of that nature. So I'm not beyond doing pro bono stuff, or like, you know, if someone asks me, or, you know, stuff like that. But there's that mutual relationship as well. So again, that's, you know, still a trade-off, because, you know, they know that they can expect something from me when they really need it. Because if I said no, eventually, you know, that well's going to run really dry and they're going to be quite upset. So these are things to think about as you're trying to rise in the, you know, whether it be in the startup world, the creative world, doesn't matter. It is all applicable ultimately. But realize this, because otherwise you're just railing against the reality of it all, and you'll be frustrated because you don't understand why you're not rising. You know, and as a creative, my overarching philosophy is always just create, right? Whatever is within your means, always find a way to be creative. And, you know, that's the sort of best marketing way, and for people to eventually do fund your creative projects. No different than, you know, if you get up and going, then all of a sudden, with a startup, people, and you have a great product and you start to get sales and so forth, as hard as it may have been, all of a sudden now people start to take note, right? And that's the beautiful thing, and that's where we're all trying to get to ultimately. But how we get there is through these means. So consider that as you move forward. As always, feel free to comment down below with any questions or thoughts of your own. I truly love every one of our discussions. Everyone, whoever writes anything, is always so thoughtful. So I truly do appreciate it, and hope to see you next time.